Welcome to Who's a Good Human. I'm joined by Rob, who has got such a fascinating story about loss and then finding love again through an animal. Rob, I just wanted to leap in with the first question first, which is talking about your current dog, Bonnie. Can you talk me through what Bonnie does when she spots someone on the beach that might need a little bit of an uplift?
Actually, she'd been an intuitive, sort of empathic dog from a pup. She just sort of knew who needed comfort, and she would weave through people and sidle up to someone, sit next to them, and just snuggle them. She does that on the beach, and a lot of dog owners, I guess, would identify with this, is that you really only walk because you're walking the dog. And of course, the walk's good for you. We've got a local beach, and it's about an 8-kilometer round trip, and we take Bonnie twice a day, pretty much without exception. And she'll do the same thing. She'll sort of weave through people on the beach, and then she'll just sort of sit next to somebody, usually somebody on their own, and somebody with a real sad look on their face. They look like they're very contemplative, and she'll just sort of snuggle up to them, and they'll pat her and stroke her, and you can just see it just changes the entire dynamic. She just knows, and she does it pretty much every walk. She'll find a person that seems to need some care and attention. And
Have you ever gone up to one of the people that she has snuggled up next to and shown a little bit of love and care to and asked them, how you going, and had a bit of a chat and found out what's going on for them?
well, Bonnie's 12, and I think I've done that twice in 12 years, where I've actually gone up and said, oh, she must have, something disarming, like, Bonnie must know that you need a cuddle. And somebody once said, oh, I sure do. Or another time, I forget what their response was, but it was similar to that. And I said, are you okay? Yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm better now, actually, that, I've had the dog cuddle up to me, because people go down to the beach and they sort of sit there on their own and they gaze out to sea. And I sometimes worry about people, when they look so sad like that. But Bonnie will find them. She'll sit next to them. She'll just sort of gratefully receive all the pats that they're prepared to give. And then she's got this funny bark. She sort of goes, whoa, 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 and then she just moves off. But she's very reliable. And like I said, she would do it, practically every walk. She would find someone, sit next to them, maybe just for half a minute or so, and we'll say, come on, Bonnie. She'll go, whoa, 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 and off she goes. There's a drawing of her.
Wow, is that a drawing?
Yeah.
That's incredible.
One of
She's
my
beautiful.
nephews did the drawing, and there she is there, and
She's
at the top left. She turned 12 in April, and she's still fit and well, walking 8 kilometers every day with us, and I think she walks us, actually.
Yeah, I think they definitely walk us in the end.
I'm sure so.
Why did Bonnie come into your life?
We had a dog called Astro, a wonderful little terrier. I'll show you some picture of him.
He's cute.
Sort of the Astro, the wonder dog. And he really was. There wasn't a trick that you couldn't teach that dog. And we taught him, the most bizarre tricks. We taught him stand for the queen, and he must have done about 20 different tricks. And he was just the smartest, most loyal, wonderful dog. And he lived to be 17. So he grew up with the kids, grew up with all their friends, grew up with our friends, and he was just, he was just wonderful. He was a wonderful dog. And when he died at age 17, we were just heartbroken. And dog owners will identify with this. You come home and all of a sudden the house is empty. I found myself saying Astro, and then I thought, oh, he's passed away. Or sometimes I would just sort of see Astro out of the corner of my eye. And it actually is what psychologists call pathological grief. It's a sort of an unhealthy grieving. And, I would just see him everywhere. And a lot of people see their lost relatives like that too. They see them in a crowd and so it was heartbreaking. And my wife and I decided that we would never have another dog. We'd never sort of subject ourselves to that sort of heartache and heartbreak ever again. And because of 17 years.
It's a long
It was
time
a
to have.
long time, and you can see he was a little dog. He was a little terrier. When he was a pup, his ears were down, and
Yeah,
then just one day, all of a sudden,
up
his
they
ears
went.
were up, and they never went back down again. So there actually was an obituary in the paper to him, and it read, "Astro the Wonder Dog, loved by all." And it was true. He just, everyone loved him. A couple of years went by, and we stopped walking. We didn't walk on the beach because there just wasn't a reason to anymore. And behind our backs, the kids sort of did some investigation and found that there was a litter of rescue dogs. In fact, Astro was a litter dog. He was a runt, and he was the last of six, and nobody wanted him. And we just said, that's the dog. Well, with Bonnie, there was three in the litter,
Yeah,
and there's Bonnie there, and that's her brother, who we just very coincidentally found on a walk.
yeah,
And
they
it's
look the
the
same.
strangest thing. We're walking the dog, and this mirror image dog walked up to her. They gave each other a kiss. And I said, that's got to be Bonnie's brother. And they said, yeah, we live in Sydney, but we're visiting a relative in Wollongong. And that was Bonnie's brother. So anyway, we went out and looked at this dog, and there was just the one dog left, and that was Bonnie. And we just fell in love with her straight away. And she was just so, like I said, empathic. And this is the strangest thing. We buried Astro in the front garden in a little spot where he used to sit in the sun every morning. It was sort of a spot that just caught the rays of the early morning. And the strangest thing was that Bonnie started to sit in the exact same spot. Now, you can say it was a sunny spot, but it was where Astro was buried. And Bonnie started to adopt some of the mannerisms of Astro, particularly learning tricks.
Well,
Like
that's
she would
interesting.
learn the same sort of tricks, beg, stand, play dead, really silly stuff.
Yeah,
But she started to do the same things, and she started to be a little bit like Astro. Not completely like Astro, but a little bit like Astro. And every morning, even now, even this morning, Bonnie would go to this little sunny spot in the front garden, exactly where Astro is buried, and sit on top of Astro's grave. Really, I'll tell you something. As I get older, I really don't need to understand things anymore like I used to when I was young. I just need to recognize them. That's all. And I don't understand why Bonnie wants to sleep on Astro's grave, but I recognize it. So anyway, that's my story.
it's a really nice recognition to have because I think as you get older, you care less about stuff. And also, it's kind of, well, for me personally, it's not the career that matters. It's not anything but connection that matters. It's other
I,
people.
I agree. In fact, I don't even really understand it, but that's not the point. It's a little bit like, you're thinking of someone and then they call you a few minutes later and you haven't seen them for years. I mean, it happens to everyone a couple of times during their life. Or you'll just have a chance meeting with someone and the meeting will completely change the course of your life. And it's almost like a revolving door thing. Now, I don't understand that, but I recognize the importance of it and the significance of it. And I recognize the significance of getting Bonnie after the heartache of losing Astro because, look, tell you the truth, I like my dogs more than I like most people. And
I think there's a lot of dog owners that can relate to that and cat owners and people that have animals in their life. People are so complex, whereas animals, they don't seem to be.
well, they just love.
Yeah.
And it's unconditional and it's just wonderful. And, they to say they are part of the family is an understatement. In fact, we are part of their pack.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
and that's, I guess, why the relationship between mankind and dog is so extraordinary. We
It
have
is.
literally evolved together. And yeah, I mean, it's such a privilege. We weren't going to get another dog, but we did. And look, Bonnie's 12 and she's well, but in the next few years she'll pass and we'll be faced with the same sort of heartbreaking decision. But I don't think we'll leave it 2 years this time. And hopefully we'll find each other, whoever our next dog's going to be. And we've certainly had a good run. We've had wonderful dogs and, I expect that run will continue. And after Bonnie, there'll be another extraordinary dog and with its own characteristic. And yeah, let's see whether she wants to sleep in the same sunny spot in the front garden. Let's see.
If that future dog does, something 3 for 3, something's going on, Rob. That's for sure. I would love to go back to Astro and your beginnings with Astro. So you went and picked Astro up at the runt of the litter, so to speak.
Yeah.
And what was Astro's personality like when you first met Astro? Do you remember?
Extremely loyal and very protective. He was sort of our front door guard dog. And this is the strangest thing. I at the time I worked in a local hospital. And it's quite close. It's, quite close to where we live. It's about less than a kilometer away. And I would walk home in the evenings. And Alison, my wife Alison, would say that Astro would know that I was on my way home and would go to the front door and just sort of sit there about 20 minutes before I got home. And that was variable because I'd leave work at different times. But the dog just knew when I was leaving work and sit and greet me at the front door. The interesting thing is that I heard somebody say recently that they trust dogs' intuition about people, because I had a friend, quite a good friend, who turned out to be quite a dark sort of character. He had a very dark secret life, and he was the only person that Bonnie used to growl at. He'd come over, because we used to go surfing together, and he'd come over and Bonnie would go, eh. And that was the only person she ever did it to. And in fact, he did have a very, very dark secret life, and Bonnie and Astro picked that up. So that was the sort of character the dog was. The dog loved tricks, like I said, and right from being a pup, we just taught it something, very little effort. I think the first thing was that beg. There's got to be a better range of tricks. My wife used to say it was a bit sort of demeaning, but the dog loved it. So sit, stay, roll over, play dead, stand for the queen. I used to get it to find something, and that was from a pup. And it was a tiny little runty dog that nobody wanted. And that was Astro the Wonder Dog.
Can you describe Astro the Wonder Dog doing Stand for the Queen? Because in my head, I'm kind of trying to figure out, is it a curtsy? Is it a
good question?
I don't know.
No, it was completely humiliating and very inappropriate. But the dog would get up on its hind legs and just sort of, for the longest time, balance on its hind legs. And I mean, you could say stand. You could say stand for the Republic if you wanted to, but it just seemed appropriate to stand for the Queen. And whenever friends would visit, they would always say, oh, Astro, stand for the Queen. And Astro would sort of get up on its legs and do this. And very clever, really.
Very clever. My dog does not do tricks at all, Rob.
Well, Astro had a quite a terrible thing happen to him. He was mauled by a pit bull when he was about 2, and it actually tore open his stomach, ruptured the omentum, and there was intestines hanging out. And we took Astro to the vet, and he said, look, there's nothing we can do for your dog. The injuries are horrendous, and but we can give him a little bit of morphine and just to settle him down, and you can come and visit him in the morning. Anyway, the next morning, everyone was just so upset, and we went there at 8:00 the next morning, and the dog was still alive. And the vet said, we don't know how. We pushed the intestines back in and we sewed everything up, but the dog's still alive. Anyway, Astro lived to be 17. Now, this is a bit odd. I was working in, I don't know whether I should tell the story, but anyway, I was working in drug and alcohol at the time, and there was a rash of people injecting themselves in their arteries. They were getting, this is a very strange story, and they would get arterial ulcers. And we had all this matrix gel that had gone out of date and was actually thrown in the bin. And it's extremely expensive. It increases wound healing about 5 times so you can heal an artery. Anyway, I got it out of the bin, brought it home, and we were putting it on Astro's wound, which was sort of like this. And every day, because dogs have got a higher metabolism and they actually heal at a greater rate than people do. And we could honestly see this this wound in it, and Astro's abdomen just heal, just gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And eventually it was like that. And the vet jokingly said, "Oh, look, would you like us to do a hair transplant? Cover this a little area." And I said, "No, it'll be okay." I mean, the dog should have died. My wife was walking the dog and a pit bull came out and just latched on and, caused these really horrific injuries, which were not compatible with life, actually. But sometimes the life force is just too great. And that's when Astro was 2 years old. And like I said, Astro lived another 15 years after that.
And when Astro was with you, in terms of how Astro sat within the family unit, what was Astro like with your children?
Just brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I mean, my wife was the alpha bitch, in inverted commas. You could see that she was the one that Astro was closest to. He really was a dog that was loved by all, and just seemed to give everyone equal attention. And I mean, Alison was the first amongst equals, but that's my 3 children and all their friends and the extended network. Everyone just loved the dog. It was a real terrier, had a terrier's heart. We used to play a funny game. We used to do this thing where we would hide somewhere in the house and we'd make this funny noise, and the dog then had to find us in the house. And actually both dogs do it. Strangely enough, both dogs do it. Astro was particularly good at it. Bonnie's a hound, so she sniffs, and Astro is a terrier, so he had really good hearing. And he would actually, I think he'd possibly even hear our heartbeat or our breathing, and he would find where we're hiding in the house. So, yeah, and that was from a pup. That was from a
Wow.
little pup. So, yeah, great.
Astro sounds like a really fun dog. And I do have to ask, Astro, did you name Astro after Astro Boy?
Look, like a lot of things, they're lost in the fog of time. And I honestly don't remember who named the dog. Everyone's got their own memory and their own view, but, maybe it was one of the kids. The kids used to watch Astro Boy on television. I can't tell you where the name came from, but it came from somewhere and it stuck. Yeah.
A mystery. I do love it though, because every time I think of Astro, I think of the cartoon Astro Boy,
Yeah.
which was such a cool cartoon to watch in
Very
the
cool.
80s as a kid on ABC TV. When Astro got a little bit older, did you know when, I hate to ask this question, but did you know when it was almost time for Astro to cross the Rainbow Bridge?
That's a very difficult question for me to answer, because Astro was sick for about 2 weeks before he died. And really, I should have taken him to the vet for euthanasia within a few days, because he was really sick, but we just couldn't. But we made him comfortable. Like, he was all sort of rugged up. And my mum, my elderly mum, came to visit and, sat with the dog and petted him. And Astro was very fond of my mother, who's still alive, actually, in 89. And so Astro got lots of love and attention, stopped eating and drinking. And I really should have taken him, but within a few days. But within about 10 days, the time was up, and Astro started to wander off, which dogs often do. The reason, I believe, is that they don't want to bring danger to the pack. So they wander off so that they don't attract a predator. And so a couple of times we couldn't find Astro, and he was under a neighbor's house, or he was a couple of blocks down in a bush. My son, who's a scientist, said, "Well, look, that's his way of telling you that his time is up and you've got to do the responsible thing and take him to the vet and have him put down." That's what we did. And of course, that's one of the most difficult decisions a dog owner has to make. But it's part of the deal.
Yeah.
It's part of the deal.
Yeah, and it is a really difficult decision.
Yeah.
I've had to do that with my cat the couple of years ago. So I love cats and dogs equally. I've got
I do too.
Yeah, and it was a really difficult decision. And a friend of mine's, she said to me, "Cece, you have to make sure that you do the right thing by Edie." And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
But
it is a responsibility. In fact, it's
yes.
the ultimate responsibility. And I worked in palliative care and human palliative care for quite some time, years ago, before I changed careers. And I really did understand the concept, but with an animal, with your own dog, it is active. You've got to make an active decision, and you've got to make the right decision, because sometimes it's easy when there's only one decision to be made, and that's the right decision. Yeah, and it's in a way it's sort of less complicated with the dog, but it doesn't make it easier. Yeah,
No,
yeah,
absolutely not. Fast forwarding now to Bonnie,
yeah.
and Bonnie is now a dog that's had lots of life experience. But what was Bonnie like as a pup?
Just a nightmare. it Bonnie used to escape at every opportunity and just to be with people. One time we got a call from the private hospital, local private hospital, and Bonnie was in the foyer of the private hospital. I don't know how she got there. It's a long way away. She was in the foyer of the private hospital, sitting there being petted by everyone. The strangest thing, ran about 7 kilometers from home and chasing birds. 7 kilometers she was found, and she ran that whole distance across streets, probably across the freeway. It was just a nightmare. I remember once she ran away and we got a call from the pound, and I went out to get her, and I just missed closing, so I had to go back the next morning. And Bonnie at home slept in a really comfortable dog bed, but at the pound she was on concrete. Anyway, when the officer opened the wire, the gate to the enclosure, Bonnie just leapt in one motion from the ground straight up into my arms and looked at me in the face, and I just know what she was thinking. Whatever I did, I will never do that again.
Oh,
I will never escape again. And she never did. She never
yeah.
did. Yeah. I forget the circumstances of that escape, but like we had a secure garden, but somehow she found a way of getting out, and off she went. I remember there was another time on our local beach, she went left instead of right. And I had to run a couple of kilometers, and there was the entire surf life-saving Nipper contingent were trying to catch her at under the orders of the pound. And she was just darting and cutting, and they just couldn't get her. It was such a sight. There was about 30 kids trying to get her, and she was somehow, evading capture. So anyway, that's what sort of dog she was. She just needed to be amongst people.
Yeah.
And even if we were out for 1 hour, she would find some way of getting out, and we would reinforce the boundaries. And, once she dug under, and she wasn't a digger, but she would find a way. And then after the episode with the pound, that was the last time she ran away. I could just see it in her eyes. I had to sleep on concrete. This was horrendous. This was the worst experience of my life, and I promise you I will never do it again.
She sounds like a beautiful dog. How much
Beautiful.
does she mean to you?
Yeah, look, she's part of the family, and when we travel quite a lot, and we always take Bonnie down to my mum's, and it's funny, it is her second home, and she's completely comfortable with it. But when I get back home and the house is empty, I'll say, Bonnie, and then I'll go, oh yeah, she's at mum's. Yeah, we're very lucky to have my mum and my brother as a place to take our dog when we travel. And a funny thing is that we usually limit our adventures to 2 weeks, and they're like a lot of people of my age. You go for a short trip, single destination, you have your adventure, and you come home. And it's usually about 2 weeks, and that's about as long as we like to leave Bonnie now at 12 years old. Although my mum takes really wonderful care of her, and my brother walks her, and it's her second home. When you get home and the home's empty, there is an absence. There's a void, and even a temporary one. So how much more so it is when you actually lose your dog and, the house is empty. And they've both been wonderful dogs, and, we've been very, very lucky, very lucky.
All dogs are characters in their own
They
right,
are.
and they've got their own personalities, and they bring lots of different interesting circumstances to the owners or the people that choose to protect and care for them, because
Yeah.
that's what you are. You're protecting the animal and you're caring for them, and you're making sure that they have, the best life they can possibly have while they're here with us, joined at our hip. I just really love hearing about Bonnie because she just sounds like a bit of a character. And the fact that she went chasing after birds for 7 kilometres.
Well, I found her and she'd actually been hurt. And when I was trying to trace her, somebody said, "Oh, you're looking for a black dog. It just got hit by a car." And I thought, oh my God. Anyway, but Bonnie did have a wound on her leg where she'd been hit. I mean, it wasn't bad. It healed up and it was okay. But boy, 7 kilometers. And that was the other thing, is that she is preoccupied with seagulls because she's half German Shorthair Pointer, half Border Collie. So she's quite conflicted. She wants to round and chase at the same time. Anyway, I remember once down on the beach, there was a big sandbank and there was a flock of seagulls on the other side of the sandbank. And Bonnie ran up this bank, launched herself into midair and got a seagull around the abdomen in midair and dropped. And I went, "Bonnie!" And she dropped the seagull and the seagull flew off. It's the first and only time in 1,000 chases she's ever even come close to catching one. And I mean, no harm was done and the bird flew off. But Bonnie had this look on its face as if to say, "Oh my God, what did I just do?" But to sort of calculate that trajectory over the sandhill and into the air and anticipate that a bird would fly up. I mean, most people aren't that smart.
No.
That takes genuine intelligence. Anyway, so funny thing is, after that time, Bonnie chases, but not really with a view to catch, just to sort of chase them off the beach. So that's Bonnie and seagulls. So, and I have to tell you, that's every day, twice a day. She would chase the seagulls, and the young seagulls get a bit fed up with this, and they do dive bomb. And they were doing that only yesterday, actually dive bombing her. And so I think the seagulls and the dog have sort of worked out things between them. They've got these roles, and they fulfill their various evolutionary roles to be chase and dive bomb and escape. And no, she is a character.
And Rob, for you and your future with dogs and animals, will it always be an adventure when Bonnie one day leaves you, that you'll continue to have potentially that future dog? Will dog ownership always be part of your life?
Yeah, I can sort of be very philosophical about it, but I think I'm going to have to wait till the time comes. My instinct is that I won't leave it for 2 years. Like I said, we waited 2 years until Bonnie found us, and I don't think I'll leave it that long next time. So I think Bonnie, given that Bonnie's fit and well and slim and walks every day and has a good diet, I think she's got a few more good years. And when that time comes, let's see, I can be philosophical, but, loss and grief are real and painful, and, I'll cross that bridge when I come to it.
Yep. And best part about having Bonnie in your life?
She just enriches our whole life. She's part of the family. We're part of her pack. She's actually just I guess the word is she's a comfort. She's a genuine comfort. And, we're a comfort to her. It's a relationship. There's extraordinary mutual benefit. And it's the sort of only the mutual benefit that a dog or a cat owner can understand, particularly a dog owner. Yeah. So, yeah, I'll cross that bridge when I come to it.
Rob, what a beautiful journey you've got ahead of you. And currently chasing seagulls, Bonnie is at the moment. I have to say thank you for sharing the life of Astro, because it's so nice to honour the animals that have left us and remember them and the joy that they have brought us. And I really appreciate you sharing Astro's story with me.
Can I tell one more Astro story before we go? Okay. Alison was the alpha, and Astro would take her underwear out of the laundry bin and he would bury it. Now, I'm not talking about 1 or 2 or 10 or maybe even 100. Over 17 years, that bloody dog buried so many pairs of underwear. And it was only ever Alison's underwear in the laundry basket, and it was clean underwear. And even now, when we're digging in the garden, even now, all these years, sort of I guess because it's nearly 19 or 20 years since Astro died, we're still finding underwear. And Alison always says, that dirty dog. Anyway.
And she must have been going to the shops to buy
She was.
replacement
Well, at
underwear
first
all
she
the
didn't know where the
time.
hell they were going. And then we found Astro burying something, and yeah, it was just he would both dogs bury bones, but Astro just had this thing about Alison's underwear and would bury it. And like I said, we are honestly still finding underwear to this day. So anyway, that'll do. That'll do.
Will do. Rob, thank you so much for sharing the life of Astro and the life of Bonnie and your love for both dogs. I appreciate it so much, and thank you for making me laugh and smile with that last story. I'm sure there's others that are in a similar situation, but maybe not 20 years after the fact. Thank you so much for sharing your story on Who's a Good Human.
Thank you, Sian.
If you have a story to share about the incredible pets or working animals in your life, I'd love to hear from you. Find Who's a Good Human on all the socials. That's Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And you can send me an email at hello@who'sagoodhuman.com.au, or you can look for the website. I can't wait to hear from you and help you share the story of the animal that has touched your heart. My name's Sian. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.